You were bullied as a kid and on national television. You were cheated on. Like, how did you stop letting the world dictate how you felt about yourself?
Oh, great question. I felt like that's why I wanted to write this book, to just kind of reclaim my narrative, to put my story out in my words, and to be the person telling my story and not someone on a TV show. I feel like there's only been one side of me shown, and in order to reclaim my story, I needed to put it out in my own words, only edited by myself and obviously a copy editor.
What do you think specifically for yourself was misunderstood or has been misunderstood about you over the years that you would like to tell the world this is who I actually am?
I think coming into this show with a group of women who really wanted nothing to do with me, did not want me on their show, thought that I was just this home wrecking whore because of a situation I was in 5 years prior. I felt like I automatically had that scarlet letter branded on me, and there was nothing I could do, still to this day, to escape that. So that's, why I did want to write this book, is to tell the other sides of me, because I feel like throughout 11 seasons of a show, I feel like people think I'm disloyal, I'm not a girl's girl, I'm not a good friend, and I'm an incredible friend. You haven't seen me other than Ariana in a solid friendship with another woman on this show. It started as me just fighting for survival, just trying to get through another season. And that's why I felt like season two, I really needed a best friend. I needed a girl who could just be my person on the show of women who didn't want me there. And throughout that, I think the narrative of Sheena's not a girl's girl and she's not a good friend has been a really frustrating one, because anyone who knows me and who is close friends with me knows my heart, knows what a good person I am. And I think that's been a huge misunderstanding of the show. And hopefully, through reading my book, people have a better understanding of me as a girl's girl and me as a loyal friend.
I think it was towards the end of your book, you said something like you came into VPR super confident, and then towards the end, it just wasn't the case. Like, do you view it as a net positive or a net negative?
Net positive for sure. I think that reality TV, as difficult as it can be at times, to be just completely vulnerable and to open yourself up to the world to judge, I think it can be really hard. But overall, doing this job and having this experience, I've learned things about myself that I don't like, that I want to be better about. I've grown. I feel like I'm a better version of myself. I may not be as confident as I once was, but that's okay. It's okay to have some insecurities. It's okay to not just walk into the room and feel like you own it. It's taken a lot for me to have the confidence to write this book. And I feel like that's one of the things that's kind of helping me regain my mojo. And just through extreme therapy and being on medication, I know also helps with my mental health. But overall, I would say it has been a net positive experience.
What was like the old version of you had to let go of in order to step into this new version of you where you're out like telling the world who you really are and helping to inspire other people?
I think I just had to stop caring what other people think. I've been a people pleaser my whole life. I've always, wanted everyone to get along and everyone to like me, and that's not always realistic. And I think having to kind of step away from that and just understand that, what, not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. I would like everyone to understand me and understand why they don't like me, but at the end of the day, I know who I am. I have a great family, a great group of friends, and I, everything I do is for my daughter. She has made me a better person. And I think when you become a mom, it does change who you are and how you view friendships and the world in general. But overall, yeah, I just really wanted to put my entire story out there. I've always said I'm an open book, but it wasn't until this book that I fully opened up.
What's been like the therapeutic benefit of this writing process for you?
Very cathartic writing this book. Also, a little traumatic at times. There were quite a few panic attacks I had. Is this going to go in the book? Is it not? And a lot of moments where I kind of just wanted to give up. I didn't want to do it. It was reliving a lot of past trauma, things that I had compartmentalized coming back up, and now seeing things in my past through a new lens as a mother. And oh my God, the things that I went through, I would never want my daughter to go through. And how can I break the generational cycle? How can I be there for her so that if she is getting bullied, she doesn't feel like she can't tell me? And so that's just my biggest thing is looking back through my experiences, how can I give more to my daughter and be a version for her that, I mean, my mom was amazing. And I think now through writing this book, I understand why I did keep a lot of things in. I have a great relationship with my family, and I just hope that my daughter will feel comfortable opening up to me about anything.
Would you say that like your daughter has been like the main like catalyst for you like evolving into this new version of yourself?
Absolutely. I want to be someone she's proud of. I want to be someone she looks up to. And at the end of the day, you can call me every name in the book, but I know I'm not a bad mom and I know I'm not a bad friend. And sometimes, that's enough.
Yeah. People pleasing is something that a lot of people have struggled with over the years. I struggle with it. People, it's just a tough thing. Like, would have been some of the things that have helped you like stand your ground and not be susceptible to other people's opinions.
Still working on that, still learning and growing. I do think doing therapy and just being more open about the things I'm going through and through experiences, I think definitely helps. I think that I've put a lot of work in over the years, and I'm showing up now for my daughter, for myself, for the woman I'm still becoming. And I'm no longer living to appease others or to avoid criticism. Like, I'm 40 years old now. I am standing my ground, and I'm not the girl I was 14 years ago when we shot the pilot. I mean, I'm not the same person I was even last year. I think through lived experiences, you change, you grow, you evolve, and that's part of the beauty of life.
And it's got to be more challenging, I think, being in the public like you are, because in many cases, the public determines like your income in some ways, right? And your livelihood, because you get like some negative press that might not be true. And all of a sudden, maybe you lose a brand deal or you lose some sort of opportunity, right? Um, like, how do you navigate like that part of it where you're having the balance, like not caring about other people's opinions, but then you're like, hey, like this is kind of how I like make my income. Like, what's that dance like?
It has been challenging, especially over the last couple of years. Prime example, when I was at BravoCon 2 years ago, I happened to be at an after party in Tom Sandoval's room, and the next day I get booed on stage, a brand deal that we were working on pulled out, and I'm like, I was just talking to Captain Jason at an after party. Like, I didn't even do anything wrong. And I don't think there's really a good way to navigate that. It's difficult, but at the end of the day, I just have to know that as long as I stay true to myself and I know who I am, the world doesn't know every side of me until this book. And, if you read this book and you still think I'm annoying, you don't like me, I am totally okay with that. I am okay with not being fully liked for probably the first time in my life. And it's kind of freeing to not care as much.
For sure. And you bring up the Sandoval incident, and that became like very mainstream. Like people that weren't even like Bravo fans were like talking about it. I mean, I feel like over the course of the show, everybody's kind of been cheated on. Like, why do you think this incident became so viral?
I think because it was, the close friend, because it was 7 months of sneaking around behind everyone's backs, but also doing things in front of our faces that we didn't even realize until watching back the show. There was a part when we were in Mexico and Tom slaps Raquel's and she has like a jumped to it. None of us noticed that when it happened in real time in front of our face. But then we watched the show back and we're just like, wow, so disrespectful that you're like literally even doing this in front of our face. You're not even trying to hide it anymore. It was just, I think the reason why it blew up so big is because it was the friend. Like you would never expect that. We never thought that. At least Ariana and I never did.
And I appreciated you sharing like your perspective in the book about how it impacted you. You know, you kind of felt betrayed a bit and you were just kind of caught in the middle of it. Like talk about like your experience with that situation and the toll it took on your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, like I take full accountability for my actions the night of the altercation. I with Raquel, emotions were heightened, absolutely. Um, but that part of it, there was the affair that my best friends were involved in, but then to have a restraining order on top of it, to have her exaggerate in police reports to deflect from her own accountability, it just that put a new level on what I was already going through with my friends. Then put, what Brock disclosed to me on top of it. And I just felt like my entire world had shattered. I didn't know how I was going to put the pieces back together. I didn't know if I could. But then I looked into my daughter's eyes and that beautiful little girl. I'm like, I will do anything for you. I will stay strong for you. And it wasn't easy, but I did do a lot of EMDR therapy, which I genuinely believe works because I'm able to go back and talk about these traumatic experiences and not be completely sobbing like I was 2 years ago. I've put the work in and I'm going to continue to put the work in. It's never done, but that's the beauty of therapy and medication. It actually helps. More people should do it.
What role has like changing your lifestyle, if any, like played in your mental health? Like have you done anything different, like exercise wise or just the way you live your life that's improved your mental health?
I'm trying to be better with the working out. I used to be such an avid gym goer. I had a personal trainer. I was very active in the gym. And then I felt like I've gone through a couple of slumps, a bit of depression where I just really lacked motivation. And I think I'm pretty much on the other side of that now. Thankfully, I have been working out more, even if it's just a 15-minute workout on the tonal. I'm doing something. I'm getting my body moving. Sometimes that's all I have time for. So I am trying to be better about prioritizing my physical health because I know that absolutely helps my mental health. And every day I work out, I feel so much better. So that's one thing I'm trying to be more active with and even include my daughter in it where she's like, "Oh, I want to do yoga with you." And then it makes it fun and I'm still getting something done that's good for my physical and mental health. So continuing on that is a priority to me. And I'm just going to have to make it happen, go on book tour. I'm planking in the hotel room. I need to do something to keep my body moving because that keeps my mind moving.
Yeah, it's that mind body connection. I think physical health and mental health go hand in hand. Speaking of mental health, like I think the entertainment industry, it's easy to get sucked into like external validation and getting attention from the wrong places and having that build this false sense of confidence. Like, what's your relationship been like with that? And like, what are you doing now to build real confidence for yourself?
Just trying to tell myself that, I am a strong person, I am a smart person, I am a good mother, and reminding myself, just those affirmations daily because when you have OCD, the intrusive thoughts take away the good thoughts on a regular basis, where it's like, I know I'm a good mom, but then I question, am I a good mom? And so just having to shut out the intrusive thoughts, remind myself I know I'm a good mom. I know I'm a good person. I know I'm a good friend. I know that I can, make a difference in this world by opening up about my story and sharing it with others so that they don't feel alone, so that they understand that well, if Sheena's going through it in front of the whole world, maybe I can go through it in the privacy of my own home. And those are the type of things that keep me going. Those are the messages that motivate me every single time someone says they either listened to the podcast or they related to something I said on the show. That really fuels me because that is why I do what I do. I want people to understand that we're just normal people going through the same motions and life experiences. And it's not always pretty and it's not always easy, but I've just always felt a calling to share my story, my experiences that I've lived, because I do know that by being vulnerable and opening up, it really does make a difference and helps people.
And one of the things that I think people misunderstand is that reality TV isn't real. Like, I think, when they read your book, they'll learn that, shows like this start off as like a documentary type series or documenting people's lives. And then eventually they're like, oh, like, I love seeing the drama. I love seeing this. Let's like add fuel to that. And then the show becomes so far removed from what the context was supposed to originally be. How did that impact you and your overall view of yourself as a person?
It's challenging, especially with social media. You have people constantly telling you who you are, what a bad friend you are, you're disloyal, you're this, you're that. And it takes a toll on you for sure. I mean, it's why I've been in consistent therapy for the last several years because I need an outlet that's a safe space to talk about these things. But I also need to remind myself that the people saying these things, clearly they have issues going on in their own life and they're projecting it onto me. And if I can just give grace and understand that this person who's saying this to me probably isn't the happiest in their life, and you know what, I'm going to pray for you. And I try really hard not to let those things get to me anymore because as much as I feel like I've lost some confidence in maybe just like how I look, I feel like I've gained confidence in who I am as a person, a woman, a mother, 40 years old, and I do feel more confident in that sense. So, work in progress. Not like Jack's, much better, but I'm learning and growing every day, and I think that I am the best version of myself, and I hope I continue to improve.
And I know the show, at least like I think your role, one of the main cast's role, has come to a close, and it looks like they got some new people that are, I guess, going to try to follow in y'all's footsteps. Like, how have you like thought about like identity and like letting that part of you go? Like, what's that process been like?
I think it was a bit easier in letting it go because it's been kind of a long time coming. I haven't worked at the restaurant since 2018, 2019. And then, we had a pandemic. We didn't film for a year and a half. And then we came back and then it looked a little different. And then I did the Valley. And so I feel like for me personally, it's been an easier transition. It wasn't just like after a really great season, the show's done, we're recasting it. I think it came at the right time. I think it made sense. I think our group was just too fractured and that story was done being told. So, what's next? What are the next steps in our careers, in our lives? And let's follow that.
And I know you spent a lot of your life trying to be the quote unquote cool girl. And I think a lot of people like do whatever they can to feel liked and they end up becoming lost and feeling lonely and misplaced. Like, what's your message to people that are trying to fit in and be the quote unquote cool person in life?
Be really like be who you are and stand by that and just know that everyone is not always going to like you. Everyone is not always going to accept you. But if you know who you are and you stand by that, then also people don't have a reason to hate you. If you're taking accountability, if you're owning the things that you've done and said, it's like, you know what? I hate when people do the I'm sorry but, and I've tried in the last few years especially to be better about that. If I hurt someone's feelings, you know what? I'm sorry for that. Was not my intention. I understand my actions made you feel this way and I'll try to do better. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we can do. Continue to learn, continue to grow, and take accountability is a huge thing.
Talk about your childhood. I know you wrote pretty in depth about the adversities you've had to overcome and the hardship. And I think people would appreciate like learning like where you came from.
Yeah, that was something I also went back and forth about. Am I going to put this in the book? It's not something that I've ever shared because, out of respect for my dad, who raised me and is my dad, I never wanted to hurt his feelings, make him feel like he's not enough or like it was his fault that I had this identity crisis when I was in junior high. Like, my parents provided me with such an amazing childhood. I was an only child for over 12 years and I had a great life, but also, I feel like kind of when my sister came in the picture, it was I was mature beyond my years at 12 years old. And I just felt like, you know what? Like now my parents have this to focus on. So I don't want to burden them with what I'm going through. I'm just going to keep it all in. And I'll tell everyone at school I'm Mexican because I am. But then when they see me with my parents, they're like, you're lying. And it was a struggle for me, but it was something I just kind of kept in. I'm really good at keeping stuff in that I don't want other people to know or talk about. And especially when it comes to someone else's feelings, I've been a person who always wants to protect that. And I always felt like if I truly shared my full story and my full truth about how I felt as a kid, I would hurt my parents. And I never wanted to do that. So I was really happy that after my mom and dad have read those chapters, that there's nothing I said that hurt them. They completely understand and they just wish that I would have opened up back then so that they could have been there for me. Because the bullying I endured was something no kid should ever have to go through that. Being so afraid to go to sleep because they're threatening that they're going to chop off all of my hair at night, being, pushed into a fight circle at school. I mean, it was a really scary time in my life where there were so many days that I woke up never fully suicidal, but literally thinking it would just be so much better if I was dead. I would be better off dead. Everyone else would be just better off. And having those thoughts at 12, 13 years old, I mean, it's devastating. It was depression that I didn't realize was depression at the time. I just buried it. And thank God my parents saw something was off and forced me to go to private school because that literally changed the trajectory of my entire life.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, bullying is tough. I mean, I was bullied when I was younger and it was awful. I mean, it took me years to unravel all of that. And there were days where I didn't want to go to school. I would cry when I came home, and it was so hard to deal with. And I think it can help shape like who you are as an adult if you're not like careful, because that's just ingrained in you at the time where you're developing how to communicate with people and relationships and stuff like that. And it just shapes like your identity, like if you will, like what what really helped you like heal from that stuff so that it doesn't like hasn't triggered you as much as it did in the past.
I do think the therapy I've done has helped that. I did a Reiki session when I had just found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And she said she spent most of the time working on 12-year-old Sheena. And I'm like, of all of the years in my, like, I'm like 35 at the time, in my 35 years of life, the fact that you don't know anything about me, that's never been talked about like in depth when I was 12, it was the worst year of my life. And she said, she was like, I did a lot of work on little Sheena today, but like, that's the version of you that needs the most healing. And so then in my first EMDR session, I said, I want to go back to Sheena in seventh and eighth grade. I want to go to 12-year-old Sheena and work through this because this is something that has affected me my entire life, my adult life. Joining this show with a group of three girls who didn't want me around just brought up all of that trauma I experienced all over again. And so genuinely those type of therapies do work. It does rewire and reprocess the traumatic memories to a point where I feel so much stronger talking about them. I genuinely feel mentally stronger in the last year and a half than I had in a long time.
They sometimes say that like sometimes people will put themselves in situations to try to fix like past trauma. Do you think you being on the show was a way subconsciously for you to try to fix like your trauma from your childhood?
think it was maybe the universe's way of trying to intervene and do that for me. I certainly didn't put myself in this position. Like, you know what? I want to put myself on a show with three girls who don't like me to try and like, make up for that time in junior high when I didn't stand up to the mean girls, because at the time I also felt like I was in survival mode. I just wanted these girls to like me. I just wanted them to be my friends. I thought they were cool and pretty and I just wanted to fit in. I'm like, no, 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 I don't want this mistake I made with this man who lied to me, told me he wasn't, I mean, he never told me he was married, he never told me he wasn't married. He just never wore a ring. So I'm like, I don't want this to be what defines me at this new job, something that happened 5 years ago, that a situation I was lied to. And yeah, I wouldn't have put myself willingly in that position, but I think it did help with eventually standing up for myself a little more, finding my voice that I didn't have when I was 12 years old. And I mean, those girls are now they're friends, some of them. But we've grown.
And I think it's sometimes like just the universe gives you these unfortunate tests, right? And unfortunate challenges that you go through them and you're like, why the heck am I going through this? Then you come out on the other side and it's like you get these like aha moments and you find some level of silver lining. Like, I'm really kind of glad I went through this, as painful as it was, because it's led to me being who I am now, and I'm not that old version of myself anymore.
Absolutely. And I do feel like a stronger version of myself, with the situation with my husband. It's easier to just leave a situation. It's like, okay, that happened, I'm done, move on. It's harder to stay and put the work in. And that was something I was willing to do for our marriage, for my family, for our daughter. And I think I'm stronger because of it. I think I'm a better partner because of it. And I think I'm a better mother. And we've both put the work in and know moving forward, nothing like this is ever going to happen again, I hope. And yeah, sometimes you have to go through something really hard just to realize how strong you actually are.
So I started at the beginning of the conversation saying that you've been through a lot of being bullied, you've been cheated on. Like, I can't imagine how heartbreaking it must have been to be have cheated on by your husband while you're pregnant. Like, talk about your experience with that and how you're healing and doing your best to come out on the other side.
I think my husband knew if he told me about it at the time, I would have been out. I would have left. He chose to not tell me about it for year and a half, almost 2 years. And at the timing of it, it was right post Scandoval. My whole world was already rocked, and now this. And I didn't know if I was going to be okay. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I wanted to think about the life that we've built together, the family we've built, the amazing daughter we're raising together. How am I going to get through this? Like, can I? And I feel like until you're in a position, you don't know how you would react. I've said my whole life, if I was ever cheated on, I would be out. And most people say that, but then it's like, well, sometimes it's more nuanced than that. And it's not just about me now, it's about our daughter. We have a family. So, can I stay and keep our family together? I don't know. So I buried it. I only told my manager and my best guy friend. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want it to be true. But also, I did not want a single outside opinion telling me you should stay or you should leave. I needed to figure out for myself what I was going to do. And ultimately, Brock and I decided to put the work in, to go to couples therapy, to start to open up about this with people closest to us in our inner circle. And we chose to stay together and to put the work in, which is not an easy decision. It's a lot of work. It's hard. It's me still questioning things if I see something that triggers me and I want to question him, but I know, no, you would never do that again. But then my OCD in the back of my mind is like, but what if? And so it's just been a lot of rebuilding trust. And I believe that he today is the man I thought he was when I married him. You know, every vow I said to him, I meant. I think eventually we will renew our vows, considering that when we got married, I wasn't aware of this. And I think the vows would be a little differently going forward. But we're willing to put the work in, and we continue to work on our relationship every single day.
Thanks for sharing all that. Like that's the ultimate betrayal, and I can't imagine how hard it's been to kind of come back from that. Like, and I think yeah, you're right. When you have a family, it puts things in a different box, right? Where there's more things to consider. Was your relationship like with him on the rocks when that happened? Because they say sometimes like that can be like a symptom of that, or did you think that everything was good?
Our relationship was so new. I mean, 6 months in, we're in a pandemic, living together, and I find out I'm pregnant. It was such a whirlwind, fast forwarded relationship that I feel like it was just kind of a blur. It was like I was pregnant, and then 5 weeks later, I find out I'm having a miscarriage. Wait, now I'm not pregnant, but then a month later, I'm pregnant again. And it was just kind of a mind. I don't really know what other word to use to describe it. But during that time, unfortunately, my husband felt like he didn't deserve a second chance at a family. And he did what he did because he felt like he didn't deserve it. And I'm like, it broke my heart when he did tell me about this because I'm like, but you do deserve a second chance. And you've proven what an incredible husband you are, what an incredible father you are, and you do deserve a second chance. So it really, more so than the betrayal, broke my heart that he felt so little of himself at the time.
Thanks for being so vulnerable. Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation, and really, I think it's really awesome that you've come out again on the other side of this, and that you're sharing your story, and that you're sharing his story as well to bring light to what you guys have gone through and what you've overcome. I think it's really inspirational. And I think the audience, I think people need to hear this because I think there's people listening to this or watching this that are going through something very similar. They've been cheated on, they've been betrayed, somebody hurt them, and they think that they'll never be in a relationship again. They think love sucks. They hate men, they hate women, they hate the world. And I just think you sharing this just proves that you can go through one of the hardest things ever in a relationship and still have that love and care and emotion like you're just showing to like show up for your partner and say, we're going to get through this. And I just think it's a message that is not talked about enough because there's so many people that are like, I've been cheated on. Everybody sucks. I'm done with love.
Thank you for saying that because that was a very big part of the reason that I wanted to put this in the book. And it was a lot of back and forth with my husband, obviously not wanting this to be out there. But I'm like, you have to understand though that we've made it through the hardest part. We're on the other side of it. We're working on our marriage. And I personally think it is inspirational to show people that the affair doesn't have to mean the marriage or relationship is over. If you love each other, mistakes do happen. There's nothing okay about cheating on a person. I'll never be okay with that. And I would never do it myself. Again, we talked about that earlier in the book. But I felt like by opening up about this, it could show people that if you really love each other and you put the work in, you can come out on the other side of it stronger than you were before.
There's people that they think love is dead. They think every guy is a narcissist. They think every woman is mean. They think everybody is out to get them. Like, what's your message to that person that feels like they've lost all hope for love, romance, and a healthy relationship?
It's tough, honestly. When you're in that spiral, I've been there before, and it is hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But my advice would just be to push through and to keep putting your mental and physical health first. Because if you're working out and you know that you look good, that is going to make you feel good. And that's what I've been telling myself lately. I'm like, when you work out, you look better, you feel better. So to continue to put your mental and physical health first, ultimately, I think the cards will fall in place, but you have to put the work in. No one's going to put the work in for you. No one's going to knock on your door, "Hey, you won the lotto. Here's a great new life." It's not easy. And I feel like it takes more strength to get through it, and it's not something that everyone wants to do. They want to just say like, "Oh, the world's awful and I hate everyone," and that's easier for them than actually figuring out what the problem is and putting the work in. It's not easy.
And speaking of hardship, I know after you had your daughter, you had, I think it was postpartum OCD, and it was sometimes that can be misinterpreted as postpartum depression. Like, talk about like your experience with that, and how did you end up like combating that in a way where you can now like manage it a bit better?
I was against medication. I just wanted to try and be the strong person that I am and to just get through it. And in the beginning, that was me keeping everything to myself. Like in true Sheena fashion, I do. I didn't tell anyone about the intrusive thoughts that I was having because I didn't want anyone to feel like I'm going crazy. Like, how could you think that about your child? I remember vividly when I was pregnant having a dream that the first time I held her, her head fell off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to put her back together. And I like wake up in a panic and I was like, oh my God, like, why would I think that? And then she comes into this world and just every little thing I'm worried about. What if she stops breathing? What if she chokes? What if she this? What if she that? What if I'm walking upstairs and all of a sudden she leaps out of my arms and goes off the balcony? Like I had all of these things just in my head constantly that one day in therapy, I'm like, this is the safest space I have. So maybe I'll just tell her these thoughts and see if she's ever heard of anything like this. And almost immediately she knew that it was postpartum OCD, but she started asking me some more questions. How are you with numbers? How are you with this? And I'm like, well, let me tell you a story about numbers. And after our session, she sent me a questionnaire and it was just like, this, rate this, and whatnot. And after I did that in our next session, she goes, okay, so you have like mild to moderate OCD. It's not completely debilitating. It can, get there eventually. But now that we know what it is, you need a psychiatrist to officially diagnose you. But I'm pretty sure this is what you're experiencing. So I did get the official diagnosis from a psychiatrist. And then it was like, okay, well, what are the next steps? Exposure therapy has been huge for me, and talk therapy has been great. EMDR, all of these things have really helped me, but also having the proper diagnosis. Because when I went to my 6-week appointment, they give you a questionnaire with, I don't know, say 15 questions. And, are you depressed? Do you have postpartum depression? And there were maybe 3 to 5 questions I wanted to say yes, but I'm like, I know just from the research that I had done, it's not postpartum depression. There's something else wrong with me, but I'm just going to say no on all of these questions because I don't want to be misdiagnosed. And like, I don't want them to put me on depression medication when I'm also breastfeeding. And it was just a scary thing for me to admit out loud. So it took probably about a year and a half for me to finally open up to my therapist and get on the right path of therapy and eventually medication. And it has done wonders for me. But that's also why I like to be so vocal about it because I have had so many women reach out to me and thank me for being open about this because they now realize that they have postpartum OCD. These things that I've had, one of my friends is a therapist, and she told me that after I spoke last year at the International OCD Foundation, I accepted the Illumination Award, and that one of her patients had heard my speech and was borderline suicidal because she didn't understand what was wrong with her and all of these thoughts that she was having. And after hearing me speak about it, she realized this is what's wrong with me. If we can treat this, then maybe I'll be okay. And hearing stories like that, I mean, literally life changing. And that's why I think it is so important to open up about postpartum maternal mental health because so many people are going through it and just suffering in silence because they have no idea what's wrong with them. And it's not that anything's wrong with you, it's just, maybe we need a little help rewiring our brain.
Yeah, we are in a mental health epidemic right now. And I just think so many people are struggling and facing things that they don't want to talk about. And we're in this loneliness epidemic. And speaking of that, like when you felt like the world was like falling down around you, like whether you were on the show, whether you were like in your 20s, whatever it was, like what would you do to like keep your composure? Like what did it look like for you, like in real time, when things around you were falling apart, where there'd be like a negative press or there'd be something that happened on the show? Like what did that all look like for you?
I mean, sometimes I would turn to marijuana because I would feel like if I'm a little high, then my brain goes into a different rationality where I can understand things a little more and it made it a little easier. And then I realized that I was kind of using that as a crutch and I needed to deal with things not by masking them, but by understanding what it is that is upsetting me, what I can do better. And I think writing this book helped a lot of that because it was extremely cathartic and therapeutic, just writing about all of these experiences, knowing that I'm going to be judged, but not caring about that anymore because this is me taking my story back and sharing it with the world.
It's a great place for us to end our convo. Scheana, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If people want to buy the book, if they want to listen to your podcast and follow along with your journey, where's the best place to do that?
The book is available at mygoodsidebook.com and across all social media platforms. I'm just at Scheana. And the podcast every Friday. Shenanigans.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.